Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, baby. Yippee. Yippee. 95 years ago today, everybody, a woman named Doris Day was born. She's a big superstar Hollywood actress, blonde, sweet image. She said, no matter what happens, if I get pushed down, I'm going to come right back up. Matthew's story about Jill resonated for me, and it should resonate for you. Whatever obstacles you're having, we need to overcome them. And today, our little brief time that we're having together is that we want to work on how we overcome these obstacles so that we go back to the secret weapons, think which of those we can put into play, review them, and so that we can cook. So far, I have not been able to see any of the chats. So whoever made the snarky comment about the Red Sox pitching, I want to remind you that there are 162 games a year. And since I've seen you last, the Patriots won the Super Bowl. So let's just keep things in perspective, shall we? And Kyle, Mr. Indiana boy, it's because you live in Indiana. Like, animals grow strong there. It's something that must be the grass you eat or whatever. Matthew gave me scenarios, folks, today that I think are really cool, that he wanted me to use as hypothetical examples for springboards for how we might solve problems. And Tiffany, if chats come in, I think Matthew's gonna have to read them to me because I'm seeing nothing from the chats. Matthew gave me this first scenario. An individual is working hard, having a tough time acquiring the skills, and we need to encourage that person. What do you do? So, and his second scenario, just so you see the difference, individual is not working hard, having a tough time acquiring their skills, and we need to encourage them. So these first two scenarios that Matthew gave us, one is a good-hearted individual who's really earnest, working hard. The other seems to have a negative attitude, not working hard. And yet our casting error is that we're stuck with both of these people, and now it's on our shoulders. We need to make them excellent. Can't blame anyone else but ourselves. So how do we do that? I strongly believe that the key to the city for every single one of these is that structure frees creativity. Remember that 3-word sentence I gave you that was the key to success? That you have to start providing a superstructure for both of these scenarios. So the good-hearted person, you need to do a one-on-one with that person, and you need to ask them what they're doing well, ask them what they think they're doing well. What do they think they're not doing well? You need them to talk about what their own self-awareness is so you can see if their perspectives match yours. If they do, you're cooking. And if that good-hearted person says, yeah, this is what I'm struggling with, and you agree, then we ask them, would you like me to collaborate with you to work on these things? And if you are a good leader, you and the person will come up with the same sorts of things. Now, where we fail, everybody, is if we ask the person to do 100 things and then we don't give them a deadline to do it. So we don't have a measure for success. So it almost becomes like a math problem for me. What I think with that person is that you have to decide 1 or 2 things that you want them to sink their teeth in and improve on. Then you come up with a strategy for how to do that and a deadline. So for me, it all comes back to baseball again, is that in meeting 1 with the person, we decide things are not going well. You're not achieving what you need to achieve. And we need to agree on that. Do you agree on that? And if you don't, let me point out some of the things that I see. And I'll take responsibility. Maybe I didn't make this clear to you, that you need to be excellent at this, but you do. And these are the things that where you're falling short. And this is what I need from you right now. So we kick into a little more groin in that moment. And not to be confrontational, but to be carefrontational. This is what I need you to accomplish. By the second meeting, so we're going to come up with a date where we think it's reasonable for me to see improvement with you in these areas. Meeting 2, if they have not improved in those areas, you want to find out why. You want to listen to what are their problems. What were the obstacles that prevented this? Again, hold them accountable, give them tools to surmount those obstacles, and then give them a new deadline. But I have to tell you, meeting 3, strike 3, you're out. I know we don't have an option of fire right now. What I think that means is that you have to redesign their job description. If the person after meeting 1 and 2 can't incorporate those couple of things to make improvement, where you see improvement, we're in real trouble. Now, the person with the bad attitude may or may not be a harder problem. With people with bad attitudes, I often find, A, they don't think they have a bad attitude, or B, they blame their bad attitude on me. It's something I did, and they're simply responding to me. And they claim they don't have a bad attitude. It's that I triggered them by saying this or doing this. And so they're responding in a certain way. And so then I have to have humility. Remember how we talked about blending confidence with humility? You got to be the big wheel, and you have to be humble. And you have to say, wow, I'm so sorry. That wasn't my intent. I wasn't aware of that. Thank you for calling it to my attention. And why don't we make our meetings about this? If you can call to my attention where I've fallen short, where I've disappointed you at the beginning of our meetings, I will work on that if you can work on what I want you to work on. So a lot of times with a difficult person, if you demonstrate humility, you're going to get much more mileage than if you come on headstrong and arrogant and say they have a bad attitude, they suck. Generally, when we do that to people, it only infuriates them and triggers them more. When we assume some of the responsibility and we decide, all right, this can be a give and take, you tell me where I need to make clearer what my expectations are, where have I failed you, then we have a discussion going. We always want to make it a conversation, folks. We don't want to make it that you're slamming them. Now, if we think about secret weapons that would help you with that, the biggest one is number 22, continuing to ask questions instead of making statements. Where do you think you've been successful over the last period? Where do you think you've fallen down? What could I have done better to have helped you to be more successful? If this were to happen over again, what would you do differently the next time? These are the typical kind of questions that I have asked that make my people achieve. What doesn't work, if you add number 20 to it, how you talk, is tone of voice. Well, what could I have done to make it better? Well, now, if you're going to do this over again, what are you going to do better the next time? Well, remember, that's the same content, but with that delivery, you may again trigger rather than encourage people to be excellent. You got to think, folks, what's your objective? It all comes back to objective. Is your objective to punish them for not doing well? Is your objective to make them feel small? Is your objective to let them know they hurt you and let you down? I don't think so. I think your objective is to make them better, to increase their productivity so that your team is more excellent. And so if you think about what your objective is, you will choose tactics more carefully. You wouldn't talk down at somebody if that was your objective. That would not be a good tactic. So combining 22 and 20, asking really solid questions, and then with a tone of voice that is neutral, encouraging. Now remember, always take notes in these meetings, because 28 and 29, I would love for you to rock those two secret weapons. 28 is about having notes, taking notes, because that aids you at 29. So if I refer back to something Matt said, so if I refer back to Matt talking about, this woman named Jill that he helped that ended up being his future wife. Well, if I'm paying attention, and even if I get it wrong, I can check in with, did I get that right? I refer back to something my employee says. So make sure you're taking notes and you refer back. Have we talked about in the past the idea of echoing? What I find really works with people is in one-on-ones especially. If I say, what I heard you say, Matt, was, and then I very carefully narrate what I heard Matthew say. And I make sure I get it right. One of two things happens. Sometimes people say, no, that isn't what I said at all. And sometimes people say, yeah, that's what I said. Once I get affirmation, if they say the second thing, it's easy. Yes, that's what I said. Okay, then I did understand you correctly. Then let's begin to work on this. If they say no, you've learned something. Because if you're doing a good job, they did say that. And they're saying, no, I didn't say that. What they mean is, no, I didn't mean that. And what you got to avoid being is defensive in that moment, saying, yeah, you did. I wrote it down. No, 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 no. I'm sorry. I must have misunderstood you. What did you say? Because once you say back to somebody what they said and they hear themselves, they often want to modify it. The whole purpose of this, everybody, is that you want to make them better. So you want them to leave that initial meeting, and these scenarios that Matt gave me both imply that this one person's having a tough time acquiring the skills, the other person's having a tough time acquiring the skills. One has a bad attitude, one has a good attitude. My objective has to be to get them to get these skills in their toolbox so they can be a more effective part of the team. So if I'm going to do that, they have to be a participant in the plan that gets them to that point. I'm not expecting you to have all the answers. I'm expecting you to motivate them to come up with a plan that's realistic, that addresses their weaknesses, because you have to get them better. They have to participate in the plan to get them better. In order to do that, you have to be on your A game. And I hate to be redundant about this stuff, but if you're dragging your ass in there and you're distracted, 1 and 2, why start with energy and focus right out of the gate all the time? You got to be on your A game. Are you waking up in the morning and singing and dancing so you can get in there and be vital and alive? Because if you slack off for a second, if I for a second now look out the window at in this hotel, isn't this gorgeous? This lovely Hilton Garden Inn I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'm in the plains, so doesn't that mean I'm in the top of the group? Yeah, if I, whoops, there's a shiny object out the window, and I come back, I'm gonna lose you. I gotta be in the moment the whole time. So what are you doing to make sure you're in the moment, that you're bringing the energy in these meetings where they know it's all about them? And that goes back to TSP. If you're gathering beauty and you're commenting on what they've done excellently, and you're chronicling that so that you can dialogue with them about what they're doing well, they're going to listen to you about what they're going to need to do better at. But the more specific you are, the better you will be with that. Matt, what have I misunderstood with those first 2 scenarios that you'd like me to address better? Or if people have been writing in the chat room things that I need to address?
Hey, Michael, that sounded perfect to me. There's nothing in the chat right now. So if people want to go click the chat and type in some scenarios they'd like you to address, they can do it now and you can move on to number 3.
All right, good. While you're doing that, Matt gave me a third one. The individual is disorganized, frazzled, and not ready for the coming production season. And that's, let me just make sure I got that right, Matthew. Frazzled, not ready for the coming production season, but we don't want to add stress. See, this whole idea of stress, everybody, so what Matt added to the third scenario, let me read it again without butchering it. Individual is disorganized, frazzled, and not ready for the coming production season, but we don't want to add stress. So again, you have to decide what you can live with. At what level of productivity can you live with the person? What do you have to have, and what could you modify? If a person's feeling stress, the more they feel stress, the less productive they're going to be. So your job has to be to alleviate the stress. So that might be to modify the job description. Is that a possibility? And again, you want to collaborate with them on what that would look like. Still though, we still have to come up with a scenario and a product that they have to come up with by the second meeting. That if you are successful, what can I expect by when we meet 2 weeks from now, next week, whatever the frequency is of the meetings? What is a fair demand that I can make of you that will get you to produce, given you're at this level of stress? Now, sometimes people say, I don't know, I can't even think of that. You're asking me too much, I'm so stressed. And so then you keep your voice centered, and then you might tell them what you've seen them do well. You go back to TSP, and then maybe you invent one thing for them. and you ask their permission. If I asked you to do this a week from today, if I asked you to do this one thing, is that a fair request? How about if we do that? How about if I impose that on you? What can I do to help you to participate? Oh, suddenly the chat room appeared for 1 second and then disappeared. Matt, am I understanding that third scenario?
Yeah, you're understanding it, and I like the focus on what do we need. They're frazzled. I took that as what are really the priorities to focus on. And a lot of times you've got someone that's frazzled and they're not. There's 10 things they're supposed to be doing. They're doing none of them. So it helps to figure out, as you say, what do we have to have done. And I'd love to hear your comments on how do we show them that they can do this. They're frazzled, but they're working 7 hours a week or 11 hours a week. But how do we show them that maybe if we just calmed down and did better planning or some way to show them that they can do this in that frazzled scenario?
Yeah, what we hope for is somewhere in their history that they have had success. And that's why I keep a journal, is that I need to go back when they're in that low place and remind them of when they were successful and why. And sometimes early in people's career, it's even in their interview. So I could say to a person, remember in the interview when I hit you with those really series of tough questions, how you took a moment, took a breath, and then responded with intellect and with clarity? Let's go back to that person. Let's go back to, what if we said that before you go to this place of stress that you're going to implode, you take a breath, think, and say, all right, what is one thing I can do in this scenario? Do you remember what I'm talking about? That moment when you nailed that. I find when you nail somebody in a moment of excellence and say, oh, look what you're doing right there. Sometimes people don't like it, but I don't care. I want them to know, look, right there what you're doing, that is so freaking excellent. You are clearly presenting scenarios. I understand them. You presented them in an orderly way. It's structured, and yet you challenged me because the structure also fostered some creativity from me. Because of the clarity of the assignment, I was able to move forward. The more you nail somebody in the moment when they're doing something well and saying, what are you saying to yourself? Why is this moment so successful to you? Can you be a little analytical? Kick in the head there. Can you be a little analytical about what's working for you in that moment that made you successful? All the time, folks, it's about a conversation. And people like to be seen. If you tell a person, I see your hand shaking, I see you on the verge of tears. And believe me, what I want to do is help you with that. So oftentimes there are things in a person's life that we don't know. And I'm not saying you have to be a shrink because you're not trained to do that. But sometimes it just helps to know that their dog is dying. And that's what's adding stress. Or their partner is threatening to leave them. And that's what's adding stress. Sometimes it has nothing to do with the job, and they just carry it into the job. And that will help you to heighten your empathy, that you're aware of that. And then what you have the demand is that what maybe that we come up with a ritual of where you start each day in a positive way. I'm all for rituals, as you know. And sometimes it's a matter of getting the team together first thing in the morning and doing 5 minutes of having a hot quote of the day, telling people what you appreciate about them, finding out one personal thing they did and saying, let's go, let's rock it today, away we go. Are you helping to create a positive energy to start the day? Or do you come in and have your head down? Are you acting like a leader or are you acting like a manager? The leader is going to motivate these people to be excellent by creating an environment, a culture that makes them flourish. The manager is going to have a list of tasks that did you accomplish this task today? Now, I'm not demeaning the need for managerial skills, but these scenarios that Matt gave me require more leadership than management. They require a true leader to be able to look at a human being and help them out of their mess by demonstrating empathy, by understanding where the person is and collaborating with them on the plan. Are you creating a culture where people look forward to coming in every day? Are you starting the day with a smile? Could you start the day with a 5-minute something that gets everybody in the same place and in a happy, good, productive place? What does that look like for you? Could you create something? Are you pushing yourself outside your comfort zone? See, I blame you for all these scenarios. I don't blame the person. You should be aware before they're in a mess that they're struggling. If you're on your A game, are you watching them? Think of them as your charges. Where's your pride? And these are your charges, that if they do well, you do well. If people know you're behind them all the way, maybe a little of the motivation is that they want to produce for you. Then you motivated them to want to produce. Is that off base? Is that within the core values of the company? How do you feel about that? Matt, is there anything in the chat? Because again, I don't have anything.
Yeah. So first of all, Jeff Gunnis let everybody know that they can ask follow-up questions to the scenarios you're talking about.
Oh, good.
So they can chat in the moment if they need to. Second, JP Benman said, hey, Michael, how can we give specific feedback to an intern to lift them up without having them get too high and mighty with themselves and have it lead to complacency? And I'll give you a little color on that. Sometimes there's people that the average person in our business is working about 12 hours of the 20 hours they're supposed to work on the weekend. So they can all do better. But there's some people that are working 20 hours a week. Or there's some people that are, I saw people that booked $35,000 last weekend, and the average in the whole business is 55 for the whole year. I mean, had stellar weeks. But, usually the person that has been stellar in one place may have opportunity to do better elsewhere. They booked 35 grand, but they could have worked another half day. Or maybe they're just killing it all the way along, and you don't want them to think, well, I'm working harder than everybody, maybe I'll slow down. So how do you give positive feedback without creating apathy?
Thank you, JP. That's a very fair question. You guys know that a huge chunk of my career has been directing theater and directing film. And what's interesting about your question, JP, is I always had more feedback for the excellent people than I did for the remedial people. I always had pages more of notes. And so what your question made me think of is that for excellent people, when you're a leader, you get excited about their potential to be more excellent. So what I'm going to put on your shoulders, JP, is how you keep the person from falling into complacency is, man, you do this well, you do this well, you get me so excited. How can we bring this to the next level? What if you did this? What if you had the opportunity to do this? Could you these skills that you're already superb at? I want to challenge you. Can you bring them to this level? So it's we're always wanting more, and not that we're never happy. It's not like some of our dads, when you bring home all A's and a B, why'd you get the B? So that they're never happy and they never jubilate in your successes. No, I want you to jubilate in their success and make that motivate you to want to come up with ways for them to be more successful. For remedial people, for me, it's harder with remedial people. Learn your lines and remember the blocking that I gave you. You're supposed to be there. Pick up the prop when you're supposed to. I'm bored. It's like I have to work on that level with them, so I can't get them. I can't use my excellent skills to bring them to a higher level. The excellent people I can. And I would also say, JP, if someone is behaving with complacency, call them on it. That, man, what I notice about you, Jeff, is that when I gave you the feedback, that you seem to think, wow, you're at the end of the road. Is that the way you feel? Are you happy to stop there? Is that where you want to end? I'm noticing am I misreading your micro messages? It looks like you're content just to be there. Do you want to go to the next level? Because you know what? And Matt implied this in what he said. Some people don't. And if they don't want to go to the next level, like some people tell me all the time, I don't want to get promoted. I'm not looking for a raise. Ugh, what are you going to do with those people? You may be wasting your energy. I hope you haven't hired any of those people, but you may have. At which point you may want to use your energy on somebody else. If they're meeting the requirements, well, there you go. Then maybe their complacency is the best they got. Always start though with the other. JP, is that helpful at all?
Well, I'm not seeing, oh, there it is. Yes, sir, thank you, he says. And I have,
Don't placate me.
no, I'm not, it showed up. I have another question from Shelby, who says that she's been using improv sessions to improve her team sales abilities. Do we have any recommendations for specific improv scenarios that would help improve these skills even more?
Shelby, I love Shelby. You rock. You rock. Shelby, good for you. That's brave. See, that's another way of keeping your team alive, pushing them outside their comfort zone. That's a great opening ritual to do the improv sessions. Shelby, what I find, let me give you a bunch of them. I'll throw them against the wall, and all of you can think about how you might Shelby-ize this, how you might JP-ize these things. One thing I do is I write a bunch of words, like I write marijuana, Starbucks, condoms, courage, freedom, sadness, and I put them in a hat, and I make everybody pick a word out of the hat. Then I say, you have 30 seconds to think about it. Go, give me a short presentation with a hot opening, go. And I make people talk about that one little topic with a minimal amount of time. 2, exercise, you pair them up and you make them talk about any subject that you want. I like having them talk about excellence. And they talk about excellence and you say stop and you have the other person talk about the same thing. They're all in duets. Then they come back and share that with the group, not as themselves, but as the person they listen to. So that we all know that heightened listening is probably one of the most important skills we need our folks to have, that they have an opportunity to listen to a partner and be their partner to help their partner heighten the self-awareness. And you can do that by having them on their feet and moving around the room where they swap partners and tell things, but they have to come back and be that person. 3, I do an exercise that goes, yesterday I went to the. So you break them into duets. Person 1 says yesterday, person 2 says I, person 1 says went, person 2 says to, person 1 says the, then they're all on their own. And they have to listen to each other and come up with a logical story that comes to a close. The purpose of the exercise is to heighten the 2 people with their listening, A, B, to create a sense of fun and energy, C, to put them outside their comfort zone so that they're ready to tackle their everyday tasks with more dexterity, because now they went way outside their comfort zone. That often is a helper. 4, a thing I call steal the focus. You make 2 people stand in front of the room and you say, okay, your job is to make me look at you. Whichever the 2 of you makes me look at you wins the game. Go. And the purpose of this exercise is to get people to try a variety of tactics to be interesting. What most people will do is they'll start screaming. And if if you're with me, Shelby, and you start screaming, and I just sit there and I do something like this, more people are going to end up looking at me than you. We think that the way to get attention is to blah, blah, blah. So the purpose of that exercise, in addition to having fun, get them outside their comfort zone, is to explore the possibilities of heightened communication. Shelby, did I go too fast? Or any of those helpful? Because I have hundreds of improv exercises.
She said you didn't go too fast. Those were great.
Yeah, always, Shelby, and everybody, make sure you have a why for doing improv. Or if you don't have a why, just tell your group, I want to have some fun today. But try to have a why. People appreciate when you have a why. When I do improv with CEOs, if I don't tell them why I'm doing it, I always have some guy who's saying, well, what does this have to do with anything? Even though I said I want to push you outside your comfort zone, sometimes people are so literal that if you can quickly make a connection with the why of why you're doing it, that helps them to participate more fully.
Right. So I'm just going to go back to one of the answers you had, where we're checking in to see, what they really are committed to doing, and maybe we've gotten the most out of them. There's a caveat to that. And that is, we've probably set a budget with them. We've probably laid a roadmap for the year, and they want to do, say, $80,000, which means they need to book 4,000 a week, which means they need to do 5 estimates a week. And they're doing 3 estimates a week, and every other week they're getting the right amount booked, but they're not trending in the right direction. So sometimes when we have them of sound mind and body before they start, they have these bigger goals, and then they allow their failure to kind of be an excuse, and really they can give more, and really deep down they want to give more, but they've lost the commitment to their commitment. So it's kind of an amendment to the previous answer. What do you do when they're telling you this is all they want to do? This is their number 3 commitment. It's not that important. That's not what they said when we hired them. And they know that our success rate out of our program's high, our hire rate's high. They want to be successful at this to improve their resume and do great out of college, but they seem to have forgotten that.
Yeah, what a brilliant kind of probing question. I mean, we could explore that for days, Matt. It's when you start with, is the person a head person, a heart person, a growing person? Growing person, you say, really? Is that where you're at? You really want to settle? You want to change your goals? What are you, lazy ass? What made you change your mind? You want to be half or you want to be whole? Why commit to it if you're not going to do it? Let's rock. You're capable of more than this. Come on, I'll participate. You tell me what my role needs to be. Let's get off your ass and let's get moving. You're capable of so much more. That's the growing person. For the heart person, look, you really are happy with that? If that's what you say, I'm willing to amend my goals, but I look at you and I see so much more. Are you willing to let that potential? Why would you do anything only half when you have the potential to do it full? How can we make this a richer experience for you? That I'm all in to do that with you. Will you work with me if I work with you a little bit? Head person, doctors have figured out it takes the same amount of energy to commit, sort of, as it does to commit all the way. And when you commit all the way, you get better results. So let's be intellectual. What do you want to yield from this harvest that you're in? Let's measure it. Structure frees creativity. Here's the thing about goals, though, Matt. I've changed my goals repeatedly in my whole life. It's sometimes okay to change goals. And sometimes people have to understand that. You do and they do. That, if you had asked me 25 years ago what my goals were, they're very different from what I would have answered 15 years ago, which is very different from what I would have answered 5 years ago, which is very different from what I would answer today. So what you might extract is, what's your vision? What are you looking for in life? What is it that you want out of life? And whatever your big vision is, how can we translate your objective here with us, what you're doing with us, to relate to your big vision? And sometimes I find coaching, this is where leadership comes in rather than management, coaching a person for what their vision is, who they want to be, what are their big goals in life, and how does this relate, this little piece, this little job, how does it relate to their big goal in life? It's not like my first real job was when I was 10 or 11 or 12, washing dishes for a caterer in a basement that I'd ride my bike to, and then go down in this basement and lift crates of dishes and hand wash them. It wasn't even a dishwasher. So if you asked me at age, whatever I was then, what are my objectives and goals, and how does this relate to it? It wouldn't have been a bad exercise. I mean, I don't want to be a dishwasher, but maybe with good coaching, I could have said, I like earning money. And I want to find the experience of how to earn money and earn as much money as quickly as I can. And the more dishes I wash, the more money I make. What motivates people? Is it head? Is it heart? Is it groin? Find out where they live, and don't be afraid of changing goals. And finally, I'm not afraid of playing the ethical card with people. Look, and if I've been ethical with people, look, these are the core values of the event here, and I've held up mine. I ask you to hold up yours. So while you're here, we want you to maximize what you do. And I promise I'll always be ethical with you, and I'll bring it. Isn't it fair that I ask the same of you? Remember, all God's children are different, you guys. All these techniques, You got to know the person you're coaching. What's going to work for them? It's so Matt, that's a hard question to answer as a one size fits all. All those things are something you might reflect on, however.
Okay, thank you. And then I don't know who this is from. Oh, wait, here we go.
I'm seeing this one. This is from Dalton. Oh, it disappeared.
Oh.
From
There was someone whose name starts with an M said, or to draw out the true problem, but I don't know what that means, so they can rewrite that. Dalton says an intern has a very high sales goal, yet is struggling with the basics of marketing to the point where there's indications he is lying about the work he's putting in. So basically, he's saying he's going out for 10 hours, but he's getting 2 hours worth of work done. He constantly falls short on his goals week after week. What's a good strategy to find out the truth? Is he really doing what he says he's doing without hurting him, is what the question says, to figure out if we need to work on his effort and his integrity or work on this person's skill set?
Dalton, are you hurting someone more by letting them live a lie than by calling them on their lie? I think when you think about hurting someone, if Dalton, if you mess up and I'm afraid of hurting your feelings and I say, well, you did a good job, Dalton, good for you, because I don't want to hurt your feelings, I think, frankly, I'm hurting you more. If I have the vision and the leadership skills to see you screwed up, I'm actually causing you more damage by being all baby and gentle with you. I think lying is a really important, it's what all of us who are parents, we always say to our kids, we'll tolerate almost anything, but you're lying to us. We'll bail you out of jail, but don't lie to me, for crying out loud. Don't let me find out you've been lying to me. So I think, and I'm trying to, again, relate to it. I hired a contractor in our neighborhood several years ago in Maine to do a couple of small renovation projects in the house. He's a neighbor, he's a friend. And he was misrepresenting on the bill the work. And so we have a problem because I don't want to lose a friendship, but there was no way I was going to let this go. So I said, Pat, I want you to come to the house. I want to talk to you. And I sat Pat down and I said, the purpose of this conversation, Pat, is most importantly, I want to retain our friendship. And that's my biggest objective. The obstacle to that is that I received your invoice, and from my vision, it does not accurately represent the work you've done. In fact, it's misrepresentative. And I need for you to go over that with me and fix it. Because if we can't fix that, that makes the first thing very difficult for me. And I have enormous respect for you, and I'm all in having you work with me, and I want you to continue to work with me. But if there's misrepresentative invoices, that makes it impossible for me to work with you. Are you willing to sit down and tackle this so we can get this right, so that we can move forward and do good work together? It worked for Pat. Now, if you analyze my hypothetical example, that was actually a real example, I may have paraphrased slightly. Why was I successful? Anyone want to take a gander? Why did that work? Because Pat fixed the bill. He did overcharge. He apologized and said he overcharged. What techniques did I use? Dalton, could you use? One of the obstacles, Dalton, is, oh, Shelby, what did you say? I saw something pop up on the screen. Matt, what did that say?
You weren't attacking him and you had a conversation.
Bingo. Thank you, Shelby. Yeah. See, remember, everybody, Dalton, think about your objective. Your objective is not, again, to punish the dude, to make him burn in hell for lying to you. Because what Matt gave me as the given circumstances today is that we're past the point of being able to fire anybody. We need to think that all these people are we want to make them better. It's our job to make them better. So I don't want to lose Pat as a friend. You were genuine and stated both your objective plus, yeah, ooh, I wish those things stayed on the screen. I didn't even see who said that. Someone said authenticity and stating my objectives up front. Yes and yes. Man, you guys are getting this. Oh, I wish I could see those answers because they're brilliant. Who just said that second thing, Matt, about being authentic and stating your objectives? Because whoever said that gets it.
That's your buddy, Don Seawall.
Yeah, Don, you're a rock star, brother. You really get it. It's people from Illinois get things, you know, Land of Lincoln.
I've got so many comments to that that I won't share.
I don't even want to know. I don't want to touch that one. Yeah, but so Dalton, though, most importantly, Dalton, you asked the question. It was a genuine question, and I think it's real. Dalton, do you have any tools? Would you be better the next time with this person?
I'm not seeing it.
All right. Thank you, Dalton.
An interesting analogy, because you're talking invoices and numbers. We're talking people that are out working in the field by themselves, and they're supposed to go out from 8 to 10 and 10 to 12 and 2 to 4 and 4 to 6. And then the numbers come in, and we know they're supposed to get 5 and 10, but it comes in at 3 and 4. And then they say, no, I really went out those times. And sometimes they did. I personally went out 18 hours and got 0 my first weekend. But sometimes it doesn't make sense. And typically it doesn't make sense because we know that this person generates 2 leads an hour typically, and now they're getting 1 lead every 3 hours. Or we know that typically they have 75% of their estimates confirmed, and now it's 50%. So my solution to interject is to go back to your journal that you talk about, Michael, and look and say, okay, how have they been performing? How are they performing now? Is there a discrepancy? And then have that discussion. Why is there discrepancy? Like, was it Shelby or Morgan said, you weren't attacking because I'm having that discussion. And, usually they'll fess up and say, okay, I wasn't doing it. And then I'll say, okay, motivation is something we need to work on here. Back to your point before of number 22, questions and not statements, and the ownership you talked about. What can I do? What do you need from me? And then I like to put it back on them, because especially this generation, I see it in my son, it's all about everybody else's fault, not my fault. So I say, okay, what do you want from me? And then what are you going to do? Because I can't do this all myself. What are you going to do to be more honest? What are you going to do to be more transparent? What are you going to do to actually work when you're working?
Yeah, Matthew, I love what you gleaned from what I said. And the Jacob example is great. I find people are very defensive a lot of the time. And I want all of you to have the tools to look someone in the eye and say, you are aware that when I give you the feedback, your knee-jerk reaction is to tell me I'm wrong or to make an excuse why you're doing that behavior. Can we try for the next couple of ones for you not to make an excuse? And even if I'm wrong, just say, yeah, thank you, Michael, and make a note of it. Are we good with that? To try that for a while? Because you got to call them on that behavior. They've got to be aware that they're being defensive, because if they stay in the defensive land and blame you for everything, then you ain't going to get nothing done. Yeah, excellent takeaway. As we build to the finale here, is there anything that I left out that you had hoped I would accomplish today?
No, I do want to, most of the people on this call are younger and starting off their professional adult lives. I do want to just make the link that everything on page, and I think it's page 14, page 12 of the handbook that we handed out in Newport Beach called the District Manager Training Handbook, that has your chart on it. Everything there, everything you talked about today, that's it. Everything you talked about today, everything you talked about last call in our first meeting also applies to working with your peers, your friends, your parents, and your significant others. And some people have significant others now. Some will have them later. Kyle Look probably will have many. I'm going to do everything I can to bury that guy. By the way, don't show up to Windsor looking 10 body fat percentages better than me. Everybody strap a pillow to your belly, make me feel a little bit better. Kyle, that means you. But all these points you make and all these skills that they're developing also apply to their personal life. TSB to your significant other, breathing before you freak out on your kids, Diet, exercise, looking good, 10, 11, 12. The objective, I find myself using the objective with my kids more often. I was in New Orleans looking at Tulane. I said, let's take, here's the objective of what I want to do. And we started having phone rules at dinner because I was stating my objective that I want to hang out with my son, not his 35 closest friends. So I want to make that because everything we do here is for bigger than just here. And I challenge everybody to read their notes from this meeting, read their notes from the last meeting, read their notes from the first time we met you in person. And as you're reading it, think not only how will I apply it in my work life, but how will I apply it at home with my parents, with my friends, with my significant others, because all of this will lead to a more fruitful communication and a happier life 360 degrees around.
Well, to come full circle, Matthew, as usual, brilliant takeaways. Doris Day said, I love to laugh. It's the only way to live. Enjoy each day. It's not coming back again. And you see, when you get my age, you're closer to death, everybody, so you really appreciate that. You're so much further away from death. But that's right. Why not make every single day a romp? Have a blast and seamless transition from home life to work life. Thank you for the privilege of working with you guys. I look forward to these Zooms. Matt, what a brilliant idea to do this as a brush up. I'm here to serve. Keep demanding things from me.
All right, everybody, it's 3 o'clock. Back to your meetings. Thank you,
Ciao.
Michael.
Thank you, Matt.
Bye.
Bye-bye.